Hi, this is Mark here looking at episode 8 of season 3 of my journey to squat double body weight in my 40s. So it's been a period of turbulence. Turbulence is rather the wrong word. Up and down for a while, and then the last couple of weeks I've just seen a real kind of take off and progress. So it's gone quite well to this point in time. So last time I spoke, I just hit that threshold. I set myself this personal kind of milestone of 20 repetitions with an average velocity of 0.6 meters per second. Once I'd done that, I could move away from the 1x20 program into something different, which is what I've now been doing. And so I'll speak to that in a bit. So the idea is 3 sets of 10 using the Delon Watkins format, which is the first set is at 50% of your 10 RM. The second set is at 75% of your 10 RM, and then one set of 10 at what it should be your ideal 10 RM. Did my kind of load velocity profiling and that kind of stuff, and worked at my 10 RM was give or take around about 120 kilos. So that's kind of where I set myself to be, which actually I've never really trained for reps at 120. So it was going to be quite a novel thing to do, and I would say before getting to the data, whilst the exercises and variety hasn't really changed massively, it is just a change in the number of exercises per set and the intensities and the number of reps. Mentally it's been quite good. I've found myself enjoying the program a lot more. I wanted to go back and wanting to do more, whereas I got to a point where I was grinding it out, and the session enjoyment came from the number progress as opposed to actually just going through the process of doing the training program. But again, the number of exercises has changed. But realistically, anybody that's to the lay public might look at it and go, that's kind of effectively the same program. But it's been going pretty well so far. So need a graph, don't I? So I'll try and explain kind of how I thought about this particular, how to visualize progress, because I'm using a velocity loss threshold approach, which means that once my speed drops below a certain level within the set, that set is terminated. So whereas in the 1x20, it was relatively easy to plot progress. I do my 20 repetitions, here's how fast they were, that's either better or worse than it was before, that's the kind of measure of progress. In this kind of way of doing things, I'll frequently do less than 10 repetitions per set, but the velocity is not always the better indicator, and I'll show you why that is. But generally speaking, the idea would be to get more and more repetitions at faster velocities, and that's the marker of progress as it was before, but it's a little bit more variable than it was at the 1x20. So this is kind of how I've tried to capture that at the beginning. So the columns are number of reps completed. Number of reps completed within the rules, which is 20% velocity cutoff of best repetition. So it's the best rep that counts. Once I go below 20% of that value, the set is terminated, unless that's under 5 repetitions. I'm just going to finish 5 reps and then the set's done. And that's what happened in the first time I did this. I could basically get five reps out. I think it was something like 0.44, 0.43 meters per second for the set average. So the next 2 times I've done that, it was a true velocity loss threshold. So I did 5 repetitions within the velocity range. 6 repetitions dropped below that, so the set was terminated. And they both hit an average of 0.48 meters per second. So the outline number, the headline number for both of those 2 sets were exactly the same. 0.4 meters per second for 6 repetitions, so I am stable. But the thing that I was finding quite interesting about this was actually that I'm going to call it the set architecture. Whether that's the right or the wrong term, I don't know. But the set architecture was quite different. And if you can see the error bars on there, it represents the fastest and slowest repetition within the set. And there's quite pronounced difference between that. So what I've done here is got the next slide should show us kind of the difference 2 sets look like, even though the headline numbers were exactly the same. So on the left hand side, the best repetition was clearly much faster, and the velocity loss cutoff was also much faster. So it was quite a bit faster than it was before. But you can see on the left hand side there was a gradual loss in velocity all the way through the set until I finally dropped below that line. So that says actually that the best performance was quite good, and then I gradually fatigued as the set went on, which is kind of the traditional way you'd expect things to happen. On the other side, on the right hand side there is the second session, which was actually the first 5 repetitions were very, very consistent. In fact, actually the 5th repetition was the fastest of the set. So that's not the traditional model of fatigue you'd expect. You'd expect what you look like on the left hand side, but then obviously the 6th repetition just fell off a cliff, just energy went completely. And I'll probably say in both cases I felt like I had another rep in reserve. I could have maybe done one more repetition, but not really much more than that. So I've still got that kind of rep in the tank. So I wasn't kind of completely gassed out, but I wasn't far away in the right hand side. But on the left hand side, I probably could have done 2 or 3 more. But again, if you look at the velocity which the set was terminated at 0.41 versus 0.36. So what I'm going to find in this particular way of doing it is going to be highly variable. And what the velocity that I'll cut off one set is going to be different to the next set depending on how that set pans out. But it actually makes it quite interesting and gives me another kind of thing to think about as I'm going along. So the training's going well, but this week is the down week. So this is another thing I'm going to have to kind of mentally to play with. And the 1x20, the idea was you're kind of pushing every single session. And the velocity allowed me to have a little bit of back off because as I was getting faster, in theory, that's as a lower percentage of my 1 rep max, but I'm still pushing every single session to do as fast as possible, and therefore that's still maximal training. So what I've done with this particular program is 1 week of training at full intensity, full load. That's 3 sets of 10 of each exercise. And then in the second week, I'm dropping down, I'm just losing the last set. So I'm going to do 50% to 75% and not do the 100%. So this week it's going to be I think I've done a 3, and this will be 2 days this week, and then next week I think I'll just go back up again. So it might be a 4 and a 2 rather than a 3 and a 3. So 3 weight sessions per week with a high and a low week. It might well be that mentally I think I prefer to do. The idea is 3 plus 1, and then the second 2 sessions of that week be download. And I'll see how that pans out. But I'm hopefully looking forward to next week, getting to Monday when it's strength training day again, going, right, I really want to rip into this one because I've had a lower training week this week and I don't feel the fatigue, I don't feel the beat upness that I had been getting, and really ready to rip in, and that's when you see the higher velocities and the higher endurance and get more work done. But just the feeling better, feeling stronger, feeling like I'm making progress. Like to say at this point, being able to do multiple repetitions of 120, I don't think I've ever really felt that was on the cards. To now be there doing it, thinking, right, great, I feel like I've really made genuine progress. I don't know where that sits in terms of getting to double body weight yet, but I do feel now that I'm much closer than I once was at the start, and that's kind of quite reassuring to know that I'm on this kind of journey, I'm on this pathway, and I might get there. Whereas before I think I'll try, but I don't know if I will. Now I'm thinking, I'm much more confident that I can do that now. And then finally, the other bit was looking at the weightlifting side of things, which was not the direct objective, not direct path, but it's kind of seeing how it goes and if it transfers, brilliant. So the snatch and clean and jerk have again been relatively inconsistent. The snatch had a bit of a dip way back in April, and that's been steadily climbing ever since. So kind of that started off like in the mid 13s. This is watts per kilogram, and now it's kind of consistently above 14. And again, that the clean again is had a wave-like approach up and down, but that seems to be climbing back up again now. So everything's starting to look and feel a bit more rosy. The next thing on the horizon is the end of the academic year, the end of the school year and the summer holidays. And what that means for me is I've got a 6-week period where I'm going to be off with the kids. and that makes training much more much harder to access. They're there full time. My partner's still working, so I won't have as much flexibility in my day to go and do a bit of training when I can do that, or the energy to do that after looked after two under fives for a full day. So I'll see how I can fit and manage training around that. So I've got a real kind of like 4-week block now just to try and get where I need to get to, and then see what the summer holidays bring. But on the way up,